welcome back to Scrap with Penny, where paper meets story. And today I'm working on what is now a stash busting Saturday layout. In August I took suggestions from viewers for content, and stash busting was requested, and it was pretty popular, and so I thought that I would keep that in the mix and do it for a Saturday a month. You know, maybe more if I can. Sometimes when I make a layout, it is stash busting. I just don't advertise it as such. But today I'm going to be working with the lovely and fun treasure map by October Afternoon. And I've pulled a sketch, and I've got, this is an enlarged photo. This is a 5x5, and I'm going to use it right here where this photo is presented. But I'm going to tell you something. This is from May 2022, PageMaps. I'm going to rotate it. So I want my paper running this way, and my picture will go up. And what I'll do is I'll flip these two elements, and my title will probably still stay up there, or I might could run it down here. I know for my title I'm going to use the sticker sheet in the set. So by the time October Afternoon was doing this collection, this was one of their last ones. And you know, their website is still active. You can go out and look at all their products, which is kind of interesting. But they had more to this type of cover sheet. And I always find it hard to tell what the paper looks like when you just get that little snip. And so anyway, but you could buy this collection kit and get the big cardstock sticker sheet, the word and phrase, the journal stickers, and then the alpha stickers. So what I've done is I've pulled some papers that I think will work. And you know me, I don't ever know what really is going to make the cut until I get going. But looking at the color in our photos, so this is on a Disney cruise, and they have Pirate Night, and when you're in the Caribbean, it's Pirates in the Caribbean night. And it's the same menu every time, and they do it on every cruise, and sometimes we dress up elaborately, sometimes we don't. But this time my girlfriends were sailing with us, and we all decided we would go all in and dress up. So of course I want to document it, and the backdrop I selected was this little, you know, Dead Men Tell No Tales kind of skeleton pirate, which is a nod back to the pirate ride at the Magic Kingdom. So I pulled that with the skeletons and the anchors, and then I pulled this as kind of one that's not so busy. Then I've got this, and I'm thinking about cutting along the lines and using this as my band. And then this would be this band right here. And then I think I want to cut my circle out of the middle of this. And so as per usual, I want a little bit more paper to show, so I'm going to probably bump this up by about 2 inches and bump this up by maybe 1 or 1.5 inches in diameter. I like the paper to show. And then I thought this might be a fun vertical band here, because you've got the wood tone in the photo. And then I pulled the wood tone just in case. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do for my background. I pulled a piece of white Bazzill, but there's also this paper. That might be too much, you know, if you look at it. But of course, this is a contender too. Okay, so here's the, I'll show you the embellishments now. I think the last time I did a process video, I said I would show them, and then I didn't. So here's the chip and stick, and oh gosh, so cute. And here are these banners, and I'm kind of thinking I might can do a banner at the bottom of the photo. So what's going on in the background is Sophie doesn't always eat her kibble quickly, and she likes to guard it. And Coco likes to come check on her and help her, and Sophie resents that. So you've got a little food aggression going on back there. And so I pulled these, and these could be layering elements. And here are the stickers, the sticker sheet. And I have not ever worked with this collection. In fact, I have tried long and hard to remember where in the world I would have used this element. And then here are the alpha stickers. And I want to do Ahoy Matey. And I think I'm going to do the O as either this or this. Look, I really have a plan, y'all. And then these are, I love these border stickers. And this is how I store them in one of my multi-purpose bins right over there. It's taped to a piece of inexpensive cardstock from Michael's, and that's just how I do it on these 6x12 pieces. And I was kind of excited to see this so I could get some repetition on the wood grain if I wanted. But you know, I really like this anchors with the postage stamp edge, and this little blue wave is nice. It'll depend on how the papers look as they line up. And then here finally is the big sticker sheet, and I want to use this because it's too cute, and we'll see what else. And then, you know, I could do, see, that could fit at the bottom of the photo. So if I don't use the packet of banners, there's this banner. Okay, so what I need to do first is I'm going to cut my pattern paper, and then we'll decide a background. And I like the idea of a photo mat, and maybe this could serve as a photo mat. Get a little bit, oh yeah, I like that. Okay, so I'll be back. I'm going to cut some paper. So I am back, and I got my papers cut. I decided, you know, I wanted to fussy cut along the waves. And here's the top and the bottom that I cut off. And I have it solid behind this strip, but I'm kind of wondering if I want to cut it in half and bump it up a little more. I'm not sure. But these are things I think about. And I like this wooden strip kind of grounding it. And I've got it centered. And I've got it coming in to where you can see this full wave. On my circle, I want to tell you how I did that. So here's the mat, and to determine if my cut alignment was proper, I actually did 2 test cuts. And then I would hold, this was my first one, I think. Well, it might have been like this. Then I would hold the pattern paper under the mat and see, because my first one I was a little off on the top and I had to come down. The circle itself I cut at 7.525, and that's just a little bit larger than the sketch called for. The measurements per the sketch, best I can tell, the large rectangle was 9 5/8 by 5 5/8, and I ended up going 9.5 wide, so about the same width, and just over 6 tall, so a little bit taller, because I wanted to work along the waves, and I wanted the dark wave to be what was at the top and the bottom for the higher contrast. And then on this little guy, I just cut it to where I would get a repetition on the pattern on the edge. You know, I didn't want one edge to look like this and one edge to look like that. So I came in, it's 11 1/4, and the sketch, I estimated it to be 11 1/8. And let's see, on the height, I did almost 3 inches. And again, it's because I was wanting to stop where the stars were. You know, like I wanted a full row of stars. I didn't want the stars cut off. Okay, so, and then on this little guy, it's just under 3/4, and I just cut 1 row of the anchors, and then I trimmed off the top and bottom, and it's just under 10 1/4. So here's what, well, I cut it off from this side, so it would have looked about like this. And I cut off the top because there's that knot in the wood, and I thought out of context it wouldn't make a lot of sense. Okay, now the next thing I need to decide is, do I want to use one of these sticker sheets or sticker borders? And I would need to do something besides the blue. There's too much blue already. So I could use the black. Oh, that's pretty cute. Okay, so that is a yes. I'll have to trim it down. Here's another little thing I use my magnets for. Temporary storage. Okay, and then if I use that, I don't think I need another one. I don't think any of these would stack under it. That would not work. That's about the only one thick enough. And that doesn't really make any sense. And that would cover up the anchors. And I decided if I have the anchors here, I don't need it represented in another pattern. Oh, and I did cut my mat. I cut it a little thicker than usual, and it's 5 3/8. Is that right? Yeah, 5 3/8. And then I'm going to place it right to where one row of the stars works here. And I'm tracking along with the sketch pretty much, so there's going to be some stuff come out here. I wanted to look at my stickers. Oh, you know what I need to get out is that ship. It's kind of unusual to work a layout around your embellishments, but this pack is so themey, and you know, it's kind of hard to use. That'd be really cute right there. Oh yeah. So I can put that up on foam. And would it work up there? Oh, it would also work up there. But I kind of like it better down here. So we'll have to find, the sketch calls for something up here. We'll have to find something up there. And you know what? I should get my journaling done. Okay, and so here I'm still deciding on the background. And I didn't try this out, so y'all are going to see it with me for the first time. Oh, that looks good. But the last layout I finished, I also backed on wood grain. I try to do different things, but, you know, when in Rome, if there were ever a layout that called for wood grain backing, it might well be this one. I also like how it grounds it. It repeats the browns in the photo, and it gives you some repetition to right here. So I probably am going to go this route. And oh, I hate it when everything flicks around. I'm probably going to show about this much. And what else is there? What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause. I'm going to trim this down. I'm going to mat it to this, and I'm going to print out my journaling. And then we're going to see what other kind of embellishments we can fit on the page, because I think there should be something here, and then there would be something over here around the journaling, and then the ship here, and then that would give you your triangle. Oh, and you know what else I can do? I can pull out my alpha stickers, and I'm going to need to put them somewhere where there would be enough contrast. I want to say Ahoy Matey. It can't go anywhere up here because of the blue on blue. That's not great. That doesn't work. So I would have to bring it to the bottom or bump this up. I really want to use these. Could go along the bottom of the photo. But I picked the pictures so you could see all of our outfits. So if I did that, I don't know. I don't think I'm fully in frame. I'm sorry, y'all, when that happens. So if I did that, And then that, if I had that coming off the water, and then they're up on foam, that might work. And then I'd have my little ship. So I would obviously work right to left. I think it could work. I think it would provide enough contrast. Okay, so I've got my work cut out for me. So let me pause the recording. So I wanted to walk you through this part of it, especially if you're new here and you haven't seen this. This is my 12 by 12 Misty, and I use these acrylic corners with this. Let me say this, the link for the acrylic corners on the Etsy shop are always in my video description, and I know some of y'all are you've got them and you're enjoying them, and some of you are considering getting them, so I just wanted to say that. But what I did was I gutted this, and I just went at the 1 1/4 mark from the edge of each side, and I have a nice little rectangle. Oh, it's not a rectangle, it's a square. It's a square that I can use for another project. And so on my white Bazzill, I cut 3/8 inches off of each side, and so that sets me up for a 3/16 margin on my edge. And I'm just going to come in here like this, and I'm going to put my ATG on the back of this, and this is going to squeak a little bit. So I wondered if you have this treasure map. I wonder if you have any October afternoon, and I wonder what is your favorite collection of October afternoon if you have some. I will say that if you wanted to adapt this to a travel layout about anything, or a beach layout about summer, you could totally do that. And ladies, friends, scrapbookers, this is why I love the acrylic corners. No, I like the little phrase, no muss, no fuss. So that's ready. But what I was saying was you could totally adapt Okay, so what I just did was I like to keep the orientation the way they designed it. So I know that it should be like this. So I'm going to come like this, and this is going to be my top. And it doesn't often matter. It's just a little principle I have, if you can call it that. Okay, and so anyway, what I was saying was you could totally adapt the topic of this that I'm using to anything that would work for you. I think it's a good little sketch. It could totally be a Disney layout, because you could make that circle a mouse. Okay, I'm not going to make you watch me tape all of this down, but here's kind of what we're looking at. I am not going to extend this or expand it, because I think that's about what I want. And what I'll do is I'm going to tape it down, making sure my margins are consistent, and then I'll just run adhesive along this edge, tuck my circle under, and then I'll put some liquid adhesive under that. So I'm going to pause the recording, and I'll be back. Just real quick, and it may not matter to you, but I had this horizontal band kind of splitting this aqua. It just worked out that you could see. So I wanted the little top of the wave to show in the bottom, and so that's how I decided where it was placed here. And then on this, I centered it. It's kind of hard to know like exactly where the center is, but I was looking for, I eyeballed, you know, that it would hit these two waves the same. So that's kind of the placement of the paper, and it's 5/8 from the white to the wave, and 5/8 from the white to the top of the circle. And just in checking my centering ruler, the circle is centered. So I got my vertical banner added. So the next thing would be my photo mat, and I want to pop it up on foam. So I'm going to put some foam behind this real quick. One thing I'll say about the Disney cruises as an adult is that it's really an invitation to play. There aren't many times as an adult where you get invited to be whimsical and carefree and kind of join the adventure. And I loved shopping for my outfit. I bought it in 2022 and I've worn it on several cruises, and it was so much fun that my girlfriends joined Steve and I on it, on the dressing up, I should say. Well, also on the cruise. It's fun to cruise with your partner, but it's also fun to cruise with your partner and with friends. So I want this to come right up against this line of stars. And I'll use the bottom as a guide. And I just want to come about this far over. That way you can still see a little bit of the anchor. Okay, so the next thing I think would be to get my photo down, and I'm just going to eyeball this, but I can kind of do that with a good bit of success because I have my mat stable. It moved a little bit. My journaling printed, and I have to show off my new magnetic mat. I didn't have to use any low-tack tape this time, so my other magnet mat had it, so I'll save it for maybe simpler dies. But for the journal strips, I'm going to keep using this new one because I don't like printing it out and then having it not cut properly or have it shift. That's what was happening. It was shifting because the magnet had warped and pancaked out some, if you will. So I decided I needed to go ahead and go this route so I know what my situation over here looks like. And I've been toying with this ship. I've got it here and it down here, but I honestly think it's going to work better up here. I think that if I try to put it down here next to the title, it's going to be too crowded. Plus, that is a great visual draw at that part of the page. So I'm going to trim my strips up. I'm not going to tape them down yet. And I'm going to get my title on foam. And then I'm going to see what embellishments I need to do. Now, let's talk about stitching. I want to stitch inside this circle. It's really kind of the only thing that makes me enjoy circles. And then, y'all, I'm thinking about stitching on the waves. But I don't know if I would stitch the cream or the color. And it would have to be the middle because there's no way I'm going to stitch every, the top and the bottom. And that would be another reason to get the journal strips down because I wouldn't stitch behind them. And so if you think about stitching just a few waves, that's certainly more tolerable. The thing about the cream is that it would really call out the difference between the cream and the white, which I don't know if that really matters. So these are the musings in Story Central. Let me trim these down and get them on foam. I use the 1/8 inch wide by 2 millimeter foam strips from Scrapbook.com. And before I forget, let me say Nicole at Coley Bing is the one that thought of the Google Doc and then pairing it with the Hero Art Sentiments die. and it really revolutionizes your journal strips if you're into journal strips and like them, because they're just these perfect pristine cuts, assuming you can feed them through the die machine properly, which is, in my case, usually user error. So okay, I'm gonna stop rambling. So I'm back, and I've been having all kinds of fun over here. I want to point out that I added this pirate border sticker right here, and I think it's perfect. I like how it repeats the black up here, and it's a good little touch. I brought it just to the edge of the white, and obviously you can see I got my journal strips down, and it's another time when I didn't really want to shorten the story, and so I made it work. And I think you can still tell that there's wave paper. And so along the lines of trying to figure out final embellishments, I also went ahead and put my title down, and this little O is from the sticker sheet, the little one, this one right here, and I'm 100% certain this is going to stay up here, because what I ended up doing on the title is I tried to center Ahoy between the photo, and then I tried to center Matey between Ahoy. It's not completely perfect, and I had intended to put an exclamation point here, but that'll have to be our little secret. I think it looks good enough. So to kind of cheat on it, I brought the top of the letters to the bottom of the photo, and then I brought the bottom of these letters to the bottom of the page, and the spacing in the middle is good for me. And then I kind of went looking at my embellishments. Obviously, it would take probably more patience than I have to, once I got the title down, I was like, oh, I've messed up the wave stitching. But I don't like to put letter stickers on top of stitching, because I think it makes them kind of buckle, and so I don't really see a way I could get the wave stitching in unless I were very fastidious, and it'd be a lot of effort. I don't know if I've got it in me. But I did think, as a substitute for stitching, I could come up here and emulate every other line on the map and get some of the circle there, and I would probably start and come in just here, go here, here, and here. And I did not have room for my date, but I did pull this little date sticker, and I thought it would work right there, and it would hide the fact that it's a fishtail end. I could put it up on foam, and it's a dark blue. It repeats the dark blue that's here, and I think it'll stand up good enough. And I had talked about wanting to use the banners or the flags, and so I went and I pulled this, and I was thinking that it could kind of go up there on foam, and I like that a lot. And so then I thought, well, I need some red down here. So I went to my brads, and I got this brad is out of the set, and I cut it. I cut the prongs off. I'm not really into putting prongs through my paper anymore. But I like that. I like it a lot. And so what I'll do is I'll put probably 2 pieces of foam behind it. So the first piece of foam will just get it up to the rim right here, and then the second piece of foam will give it some pop. And then, of course, I thought, well, if I'm going to have 1 brad, why not try and get 3 on here? So the set has a pirate brad. I haven't trimmed this one off yet. I wasn't sure on it, but I think I could put it right there, and then that would give me some black right here, and it would repeat the skeleton here. This still isn't taped down. And then for a 3rd brad, a lot of them were in the blue family, and I thought I don't really need any more blue, but there is this flag brad, and I thought I could put it right there over that, and that gives me a trio of brads. It gives me some color, some movement. And then I was like, well, what do I need down here? And I went to the chipboard sheet, and I found this anchor, and I tested it over here, but it feels like this is too heavy. So then I brought it over here, and I like it. So I kind of think it would go I was trying to get this part centered up to cover one pirate, one skeleton. Skull and crossbones, that's the word. I'll get it out. And so I think if I did that right there, I think that would be my page. And I like it. I love the theme. It melds with our Buccaneer swagger perfectly and leans into the fun of the night. And it made me wonder while I was pulling all this together is, have you ever dressed up as an adult? I know that a lot of people go big for Halloween, and we don't do Halloween a lot around here, not since the boys stopped, and I'm okay with that. But I will say it's fun to dress up, and so when we go to the Halloween party at Magic Kingdom, or when we go on the cruise, and this was Halloween on the High Seas cruise, whenever we do that, we do have fun dressing up. So at any rate, I think this is looking good, and I'll pop this up on foam. I'll put this down flat, and I'll put it on with liquid adhesive because this collection is 10 years old. I looked at the copyright date and it's 2015, and honestly I couldn't believe they were still in business in 2015. But I've kind of blocked out when they went under, in sorrow. I was talking to my girlfriend Sheila during a break when I was outside with the dogs, and I was telling her, you know, she said, well, what are you working on? And I told her stash busting, and she goes, well, what collection? And I said, well, I'll just tell you the company. And I told her October Afternoon, and she laughed, and she said, well, I could have guessed that. And I said, well, you know, I've been wondering where would they be today if they had stayed in business? Would they have stayed this kitschy and thematic, or would they have morphed? You know, my mind's eye changed a lot before they went under, and I don't know. I mean, companies have to adapt, and the market shifts and changes, and so I just thought it was kind of funny to ruminate on where they would be if they were still around. So up here, I'll put this down first so that I don't have to, I don't like to waste stitching, so I'll put this down to where it'll eliminate some of this, and then I'll go ahead and get my ship down. I need to print out journaling. I've got the date. I know what date it is, and so I need to get that printed out, and I may try and do a direct print onto this. It's not something I enjoy doing, but I know how to do it, and I can do it, so I'll probably go that route, and I think it'll come together pretty quick after I get some of this stuff taped down and then get the stitching done. So let me pause the recording again and drop a note in the comments if you've ever dressed up for Pirate Night on a Disney cruise, or if you've dressed up somewhere outside of Halloween night. And then, if you have, tell me who you were. Like, I have a goal to be, for Steve and I to be Mary Poppins and Bert at a Halloween party at Magic Kingdom. So I'm close to, I'm close to reaching the weight where I think I could pull off a waistline dress. So I'll be back in a little bit. So just real quick before I start stitching, I've got everything adhered as I laid out before, and you can see I was able to get my journaling printed directly onto the sticker, and the way I do that is just to use a 4x6 piece of scratch paper, and then I play with the size. Like the first time it was too small, and the second time, and then I cut the backer paper, you know, I cut it out of the sticker sheet, and then you just kind of go like that, and then I hold it up to, I use the back of my phone for the really bright flashlight, and then you hold it up and make sure it's going to print straight. Nicole Coley, she has a more scientific way to do this, but she uses her letter size printer, and this works for me when I need to do something like that. Okay, so I love how that looks, and on this brad I just put it on one piece of foam. On this one I did two. I love the repetition of the red and cream stripe, and I think that looks great. And I love that it's right beside the word Pirate Night. Couldn't have planned it if I tried. And this, I ended up coming down a little bit because you could see the tiniest little skull in between the hole, and I thought it kind of looked weird. So I just came down a little, and I'm happy with that. And so it's ready to be stitched on. I did want to walk you through real quick how to gut paper in case you're not familiar with it. So this is the back. I'm not going to cut it again, but I came over. So I needed 3/16 of a margin. I always like a nice thickness so that you get some stability. And so I came over to 1 1/4, and then this is the 1 inch mark on my trimmer. And I just kind of eyeballed where I thought 1 1/4 was. And I came down and cut. And then I came here and cut it again on 1 1/4. And then I cut it again on 1 1/4, and then the final cut on 1 1/4. And down here you're kind of also guessing where to stop. I mean, you could totally measure it if you wanted to be precise. And I think on like this one right here, that one I went a little too far, but it's okay because I give myself that wide margin. And then I think on a couple of the corners I had to get my scissors and just, you know, like snip the connection. So that is a very simple trick, a great tool to conserve your paper, especially if you're worried about thickness in your album, or if you're sparse on paper. Sometimes you can have a collection that you're running short on, or let's say you only bought 1 sheet of something, and so it's a great way to get some extra mileage out of your pattern paper, which for me, it's so precious. Okay, so now it's going to be time to poke my holes, and I'm going to use the line of the paper here and here, and then I'm going to have to figure out what I want to do here. I could totally cut a piece of paper on my silhouette to get an inset, but I'm probably going to swag it. And by that I mean I would do something like this. I would just come in here and then poke, and then just adjust as you move around. And I've done this enough to be comfortable with that. I also have a really old school circle template, but it puts the holes farther apart than I like. I think it might be Bazzill, but I'm probably going to do this. And so what I'll do is I'll run a pencil line, and then I'll run a pencil line again, and then that way I can kind of measure and make sure it looks good. And then to get this part in here, I'm just going to have to do a tiny little stitch here, and I'm okay with that. I love how the flag looks. Love it. Okay, I'm getting excited. I love when a page comes together. And it hasn't been too terribly slow, but the stitching will be a little, it'll take me a little bit of time, but it's so worth it. I'll be back. So just real quick, you can see my pencil mark, and there's one there. I'm going to skip here. You would have to really get a ruler out to know if I needed to. It would have just been barely 1 stitch. Oh, I probably need one there. I need to do one there and then here. So after I poke my holes, I'll erase it. So I added that pencil line. This is the one that did need a gap. This was the one that had 1 stitch, and I just thought, you know what, I probably should go ahead and do it. It won't be any trouble. Hey there, I am back, and this one is a wrap, and I have to say I just love it. I mean, I would stitch on these waves if I could, but it probably would be too much, and you know, that's me. More is more, girl. And I just love the little detail of the stitching up here. I think it looks great, and it, you know, it's there, you don't need it there, and that's all well and good. I think it just adds some kind of, you know, element to it, like the map comes alive. I did want to say on my journal strips, I write justified them, so you get the jagged edge out here. I like it when there's movement in the lines, and that Hero Art sentiment strip die is just gold. On the placement of the ship, I wanted you to see one whole anchor, so I brought it down, and I had enough room in the picture in the dead space, and so that's good. I wanted to talk about these scissors. So these are the Tim Holtz Recoil scissors, and they're so comfortable. So when you have to fussy cut, it's very easy to execute on that. And my stitching floss color is 3768. And let's see, I had all these things set out. Here's my original sketch, and I followed it pretty good, with the exception of squaring up the photo. And you know, like I said, I would rather see paper than white space. I love paper. I have lots of paper, so I'm like team use the paper. I did, you know, stagger the widths as they did. I have a vertical and a horizontal, and I've got my journaling here. Like I said, I was going to flip these two elements, and you know, you can always do that when you're working with a sketch. Of course, I started out, you know, by rotating it, but this is really a good little sketch. And whenever you have a paper in your collection that has a circular element, try and find a sketch that has the circles. So toward that end, I did bring this collection sheet back out, and I just wanted to say that, you know, this is the wave paper. Oh, I don't know if that's in frame. This is the wave paper here. I pulled that, and I've got the wood grain, the anchor, I've got the star. And so if you have an idea for what papers you're going to use in your collection, then you can also bear that in mind when you look for a sketch. For instance, if I had picked a sketch that had a bunch of little squares, I might could have leaned into the flag pattern, but I didn't want the flag pattern because I was playing off of the colors in our costumes. So the reds, the blues, the browns, and I think I pulled papers that complement those really nicely. But the other thing I'll say is that I went out to the October Afternoon blog, and their last blog post in January 2016 about product was showcasing this treasure map collection. So this was one of their last ones, as I suspected. And there are some blog posts from that point up to September 2016, but those are all about warehouse boxes, and I'm sure them trying to clear out their inventory. I hope that little couple is doing well. I think of them often, and it must have been sad to see your baby, you know, not make it. So it was really fun to work with a 10-year-old collection and it still be relevant and versatile, and I love the elements. I hope that you enjoyed watching me pull this one together. And if you're one of my subscribers, thank you so much for being here, for being part of our community. And if you haven't joined the crowd yet, feel free to hit that subscribe button, and you'll just simply get notifications on your YouTube homepage about when I have new videos released. If you want notifications pushed to your phone, then you would want to hit the bell so that you would be getting notifications. So subscribing to the channel just lets them put it as recommended on your homepage. And we'd love to have you join us. So another layout done, fun. And this was only last year. This is the first picture that I have scrapbooked from that trip. In case you haven't heard, I'm always behind on my trip scrapbooking. I just have to give a shout out to my girlfriends before I log off and say thanks for trusting me to go on our first cruise together in 22, and we're due another one. But I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments if you would adapt this sketch any, or if you've worked with this collection, or like I said, if you've ever dressed up on a cruise for something. So I'm already thinking about what I'm going to do next, so let me hop off and get to that. And as always, y'all, thanks for hanging out with me.
Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. I'll be back soon with more layouts, videos, and a little stash busted magic. So please come back and crop with me. Until next time, happy scrapping, and remember, this is where paper meets story. Bye-bye.